Eden Pure is the driven snow. EdenPureDeals.com. Click on my name, put it in your shopping cart, and then use my name at checkout, ERICK, just Eric. And you will get $10 off the lowest sale price of the Eden Pure Thunderstorm. And you can get clean air in your house with this little device. It is well designed, such good company.
You can follow Eric around social media
I'm sure you've heard the story that the Trump administration was seeking records from Democrats or from Apple Computer about phone records of Democrats and the like. But here's the Washington Free Beacon. The Trump Justice Department was not alone in suspecting that congressional Democrats leaked sensitive information to reporters about the Russia probe. According to text messages reviewed by the Free Beacon, Peter Strzok, the top FBI investigator on the inquiry into Russian interference in the 2016 election, sent text messages to colleagues in March of 2017 speculating that Democrats from the House Intelligence Committee and on the so-called Gang of Eight were behind media leaks. The messages could shed new light on a New York Times report that prosecutors subpoenaed Apple for metadata from the phones of Representative Adam Schiff and Eric Swalwell as part of the leak hunt. Schiff is chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. Swalwell has served on the panel since 2015 and had relations of some kind with a Chinese spy. Prosecutors sought the lawmakers' records in order to ascertain the sources for stories published in 2017 and 2018 regarding possible links between Trump associates and the Russians. Prosecutors impaneled a grand jury as part of the probe, which was quietly closed without charges. Democrats are hot and mad about this, but is it too outrageous, particularly when the FBI itself was worried about the leaks? But more than that, are we sure they got the story right? I mean, they got the Lafayette Square Park wrong. They continue time and again to get these stories wrong. And it is more likely than not that they got this wrong as well. And we're going to, yet again, find that the President of the United States has, Donald Trump, that is, has been yet again mischaracterized about all of these things. Time and time again, they get these stories wrong. The president put out a list, Donald Trump did, of all the stories the media has gotten wrong. The COVID stories, the hydroxychloroquine story, the Russia stole the election story, the clearing out Lafayette Park story. What are the odds? What are the odds that they got the story wrong? I suspect they're very good. And here's the thing. The media doesn't seem to be learning the lesson on this stuff. The American media does not seem to be willing to internally self-reflect and say maybe, just maybe, they need to slow down and get the stories right. At this point, if it puts Donald Trump in a negative light, they're rushing out to do it. There's, my doctors, I mentioned this. In fact, I got blown up by members of the press, and I think I've been fairly fair on the COVID stuff. And I mentioned my doctor was adamant to me that the hydroxychloroquine, erythromycin stuff did work, despite what the media was saying. And I got attacked by, I think Media Matters was the one that attacked me for affirming my doctor himself said, despite what the media is saying, it works, that the president was right. And now we got a new study out that shows, in fact, the president was right all along. How many people died because the FDA decided to politicize it over media reports instead of letting doctors experiment with erythromycin and hydroxychloroquine? Time and again, if they can hurt Donald Trump, you run with the story. But it's not just Donald Trump the media is hurting now. They're hurting the United States as well. There's a particularly troubling story in the New York Times. When we come back, I got to start with this because the media is going all in on dividing this country because of race. They've embraced critical race theory, and now as Americans around the country are pushing back on critical theory and realizing what it is, and even black Americans are starting to speak up and say this is outrageous, the critical theorists are in full defensive mode and full defensive posturing. There's a study or a story on Fox News right now. Yeonmi Park has experienced plenty of struggle and hardship as a refugee from North Korea. One of several hundred North Korean defectors settled in the United States, Park 27, transferred to Columbia University from a South Korean university in 2016 and is deeply disturbed by what she found. Quote, I expected I was paying this fortune all this time and energy to learn how to think, but they're forcing you to think the way they want you to think. I realized, wow, this is insane. I thought America was different, but I saw so many similarities to what I saw in North Korea that I started worrying. That's right. She thinks American universities are headed towards North Korean-style brainwashing. More on the New York Times story when we come back. Greetings, welcome. Delighted to have you with me. I hope you had a terrific weekend. The phone number here is 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. You can get me on social media at EW Erickson. You can email me, Erick at EWErickson.com. You should follow me on Instagram, where you would have known I was traveling on Friday. Thanks, by the way, to Alan Sanders for filling in for me on Friday. I was at the Talkers Conference. Talkers is the big talk radio conference. Some exciting announcements to come regarding that. But I was out of town, this story happened. I want to read for you the opening of this story and the headline. Let me read for you this. The New York Times ran this story over the weekend. The headline is this: 2 black students won school honors, then came the calls for a recount. And the subtitle: after 2 white families claimed a grade calculation error, a Mississippi school added their children as co-valedictorian and co-salutatorian, reviving questions about race and equity. And they put up top a picture of a glum-looking Akiria Washington, who was originally named the sole valedictorian of West Point High School in West Point, Mississippi. Stephanie Saul is the writer of this. At first, it seemed a joyous occasion. There was an audible gasp in the room, then boisterous cheering and applause when the announcement was made. Akiria Washington and Layla Temple had been named 2021 valedictorian and salutatorian for West Point High School. The president of the local NAACP in West Point, Mississippi, Anna Cunningham, smiled as the 2 young women, both standout students, were photographed. It was a beautiful and proud moment to witness 2 young black ladies standing side by side, given such honors, Ms. Cunningham said. But almost immediately, parents of other students near the top of the rankings raised questions about who should have been honored. Within days, and breaking with long-standing tradition, West Point High School decided to name 2 valedictorians and 2 salutatorians, with 2 white students, Emma Berry and Dominic Borgioli, joining the black students who were already named. And in the nearly 3 weeks since the senior awards night, West Point, a mostly black town in the northeastern part of the state, has been split largely along racial lines, roiled by a dispute that included threats, a potential lawsuit, and allegations of racism posted on Facebook. Officials say that race had nothing to do with the events in West Point, but instead blamed a mistake made by a school counselor, resulting largely from a confusion over which of 2 methods of calculating final grades should have been used. I need to skip, before I get to the point made here, I need to skip down to the 20th paragraph. The 20th paragraph of this story, because therein lies the answer to what's going on. And it's important you understand it's the 20th paragraph in this New York Times story. The parents of the 2 white students held discussions with Burnell McDonald, the superintendent of West Point School. They complained that based on the West Point High School student handbook, the school had not followed its own rules in calculating class rank. After talking with the white parents, Mr. McDonald, who is black, concluded that the handbook and tradition backed them up. In the school system, class rank had been calculated by unweighted grade point average, not QPA, which would have made the 2 white students the honorees. The evening before graduation, Mr. McDonald informed the parents of Dominic and Emma he was adding the 2 white students as co-honorees. Dominic was now co-valedictorian. Emma was co-salutatorian. Mr. McDonald also permitted 2 missing grades, which a teacher had failed to record in the system, to be added to the final grade in one of Emma's classes past a deadline and after senior awards night. I need you to pay attention to this story because it is a deeply important story. The New York Times could have reported facts. In a small town in northeast Mississippi, allegations of racism are being hurled. In a small town in northeast Mississippi, black students feel victimized by the minority white families, and that is important to understand. The black students and their families are the majority of the area. They feel victimized by white people whose children were able to slide in to be co-valedictorian and co-salutatorian after the black students had been named first and second. The New York Times could have done a story on how this is where black people perceive racism where there is none. The New York Times could have done a story that healed the wounds by revealing the truth. The New York Times could have done a story that solved the problem and showed people racism was not involved, race was not involved, race was not an issue. Instead, what the New York Times decided to do was to stir the racial divisions in the community, stir the racial pot in the country, and claim injustice where there was none. And you have to go to the bottom of the story to find the problem. Part of the issue here is that the school screwed up. Akiria Washington thought it was going to be her night and she had to share it with someone and she was upset. And I don't blame her. I don't blame the girls. Here's the problem. Akiria and Layla won based on quality point average, or QPA, a system of calculating grades that gave extra weight to advanced placement in dual credit courses. But if you didn't weigh the advanced placement courses and the dual credit courses, Dominic and Emma were the top two finishers. The school had always used unweighted GPA. The school had always done it. It was not just the tradition, but in the student handbook, that's how it was stated it would be calculated. So yes, Akiria and Layla, the black students, they took more challenging courses. And their overall GPA was not as good as Dominic and Emma, who didn't take as challenging a courses. But the school handbook said that raw GPA would be used. And a school counselor calculating stuff used the QPA instead of the GPA. The school handbook said use GPA. Not only that, but a school teacher failed to enter a grade into the computer for Emma. It wasn't Emma's fault. She did the work. The teacher just forgot to include it until after the cutoff point for grades. It's not Emma's fault. It's the teacher's fault. The New York Times says so. But you have to get to the end of the article to get to the facts. So the pot has been stirred. The racial injustice sentiment waved. The race baiting by the New York Times inflamed tensions. You get to the bottom of the story to get the facts that it was the school that screwed up. It wasn't the kids. There's no racist conspiracy. There's no racial animus. It's a majority black school district. The superintendent is black. But you got to wait till the end of the story. You got to go through the woe is me, it's racism in Mississippi story first. Which isn't real, which isn't true, which isn't right, which isn't accurate, which is wrong. And you notice this subtle Trump angle in the headline. 2 black students won school honors. Then came the calls for a recount. there's no call for a recount. There's no call for a recount here. All the parents of the white students asked was that the school system follow the school handbook. The reality is that Akiria Washington and Layla Temple, the black students, are academically superior to the white students. And we should acknowledge that fact. Akiria Washington and Layla Temple, the black students, took more challenging courses and excelled. They took advanced placement and dual enrollment classes that the white students did not take. Those classes are harder, therefore, their grades were not as good as the white kids who didn't take the challenging courses. The quality point average that was used to make Akiria Washington and Layla Temple the valedictorian and salutatorian takes into account that they took more challenging courses and did well in those courses. And I think that's the way it should be done, because it incentivizes students to be challenged. When you take the raw grade point average, as the school system did, then students have an incentive to not take challenging classes lest it impact their grade point average. But the school rules required GPA be used, and the school system did not do that. So while, yes, I think Akiria Washington and Layla Temple, the black students, are academically better than the two white students, I think the rule has to be followed. And the black superintendent agreed. The school rules said to use GPA, not QPA, and the black superintendent agreed. And the black superintendent did not believe the white student should be punished because of the failure of a teacher to enter a grade. But the New York Times doesn't want to cover it that way. The national press no longer wants to cover these stories straight. The national press always wants to find an angle to stir racial animosity in this country. And they found it. And if you read the full story, you come away realizing the New York Times has mischaracterized what's going on. The subtle reference to Trumpism, they call for a recount on grades when there was none. All there was a follow the law. You know, for months and months and months and months and months and months and months, the way the New York Times and everyone else has characterized the white voters who supported Donald Trump is they want to break the law. They want to deviate from what the law says. Here, the parents just wanted the law complied with, the standards complied with, the handbook complied with, the tradition complied with. And the black superintendent agreed. Why then are the white parents and the black superintendent the villains here? They're the bad guys. The New York Times doesn't want to report the facts. They want to report a narrative to stir a racial pot and increase racial animosity in this country where there is none to be increased in a story like this. And yet still, they want to claim there's some level of white power and justice. Of course, you know, these days, the critical race theorists have argued that by trying to follow the rules, that's actually a form of white supremacy. And I guess that's the angle of the New York Times story here, that by insisting the rules be followed, they were insisting on white superiority. It's exactly what the left claims now. If you're on time, you believe in objectivity, and you believe that people should follow the rules, you believe in white supremacy. That's their theory, and they're sticking to it, as crazy as it is. But they will stir the pot on this stuff to increase racial animosity in this country as best they possibly can.
Well connected and well respected.
Hello there. It is Erick Erickson here. The phone number 877-973-7425. You know, cryptocurrency, it has become all the rage these days. And there's a new one. Philip found this story. I'm sorry. I have to laugh that. Well, yeah, I had to needle him for having. I mean, this was in the Wall Street Journal, though. The porn industry has now decided to create crypto because it is all the rage these days. I mean, people are really into the whole cryptocurrency craze. And I got to be honest with you, I don't really fully understand crypto. I mean, I get the basic parameters of it, but is it really a currency when people don't really even spend it? They just invest in it, they buy it, and then they hold it, and they can't really use it. Justin Zwing has this on reference at the Wall Street Journal that the rise of cryptocurrency and trading, they're not really investing, and also that Lana Rhodes, a former porn star, has decided to create a cryptocurrency called Pawgy Coin. I'm not going to tell you what it stands for. No. It is up 900% since Ms. Rhodes began promoting it in early June, according to PooCoin.io, a website that tracks digital currencies. PooCoin. She says that I read the Wall Street Journal every morning, but she couldn't be reached for comment. I'm sorry. I've got a lot of friends who are investing in crypto, and you know what? God bless you for investing, but people buy it and they hold on to it. You can't go to Walmart or Publix or Kroger and use your cryptocurrency to buy something. And governments could any day now pass a law saying you're not allowed to use it. In fact, some countries are considering doing that. China itself is considering creating a national cryptocurrency and then banning other cryptocurrencies that compete with it. I just don't know that it's sustainable. Everything feels like we're in a bubble. Financially, the stock market keeps going up even as inflation is on the rise. Now, today, right now, things aren't grand and glorious for the stock market, but it just seems, by and large, that NASDAQ is up right now as I'm talking. NASDAQ is up. Dow Jones is down. S&P 500 barely down. But the market just seems to be irrationally exuberant, to use the words of Alan Greenspan. You've got the Reddit Wall Street Bets thread where people are throwing money into stocks. You've got AMC, the movie theater, essentially telling people, if you invest in us, expect to lose everything. That just doesn't sound like it's a recipe for long-term stability in the markets. And people are trading stocks. They're not investing for the long term. The whole secret of wealth acquisition in the market is to buy stock and hold on to it forever, at least 30 years. The wheeling and dealing, you're not actually going to make more than just buy a bunch of equities, buy a stock exchange fund, and hold on to it. This wheeling and dealing and throwing money in wild bets on, I think this stock is going to go up. There's nothing more than gambling, and gambling never bet against the house. And right now they're betting against private equity and hedge funds and thinking the masses are smarter. I'm not so sure they are when they're rushing in to buy stuff like Dogecoin and Pornstar Coin with their money. I think we're going to see the wealth of a lot of people wiped out by betting in the stock market. I heard some dude got a loan to buy Bitcoin, and the Bitcoin went down, and this isn't sustainable. Greetings, welcome. How are you? Delighted to have you with me. It is Erick Erickson here across the nation, beamed to you from Atlanta, Georgia. Now, I gotta spend some time because so I had to be at a conference on Friday. I couldn't be here on Friday, and I have said in the past, I get up in the morning and news happens, and my first reaction is I need to be on radio. And I realized this is where I'm meant to be. I never expected to be on radio. I was totally an accident that I fell into radio a decade ago now, and I've been here since. And every time something happens, like, I need to be on radio to talk about this. And I gotta be. It's incredible that I get the opportunity to be here, and it is just delightful that I get to talk to you about the news of the day. And on Friday, Kamala Harris had another interview, and I thought, oh my goodness gracious, I have got to talk about this. I got to be on radio to talk about this. And if you haven't heard Kamala Harris's interview with the, I forget what network it was, but my goodness, she pulled a Kamala Harris.
¿Cómo le responde usted a él?
I've said I'm going to go to the border. And
When are you going to the border, Vice President?
The administration has asked. I'm not finished. I've said I'm going to the border. And also, if we are going to deal with the problems at the border, we have to deal with the problems that cause people to go to the border, to flee to the border. And that is the root causes. So my first trip as Vice President of the United States was to go, in terms of a foreign trip, to Guatemala, to be on the ground there.
Interrupts. I'm sorry, I'm not finished. And she's pointing her finger at the woman too. I mean, the rollout here has just been incredible. I mean, just all of her questions and answers. And it's like she hasn't been able to figure out a way to talk about the border. Why don't you just say, yes, I'm going next week? She's getting hounded out there on the trail as she does this international tour.
We've been to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe.
Listen, I've been to the border before. I will go again. But when I'm in Guatemala, dealing with root causes, I think we should have a conversation about what's going on in Guatemala.
So, can you commit right now that you will indeed visit the U.S.-Mexico border, and will you do it soon?
Jeremy, let me tell you something. Yes, I will, and I have before.
I've said I'm going to go to the border. And
When are you going to the border, Vice President?
The administration has asked. I'm not finished. I've said I'm going to the border.
Abby Phillips on CNN commenting on this.
It's just a little cringeworthy, and I know that her allies in the White House and elsewhere are watching it and just kind of wondering what is going on. How poorly did this go for her first foray onto the world stage?
Well, it certainly didn't go the way the White House wanted it to go. And again, immigration, as you mentioned, Heavy, is a hot potato no one wants to touch, and Harris has been dealt it, and so she has to handle now what Biden had to handle when he was VP, which is relationships with the Northern Triangle. And of course, Republicans have been trying to clump that in with the border and the border situation and attacking her on that. Now, did the trip go the way they wanted? No. In 2024, 2028, whenever, if she decides to run, are people going to remember this trip? I don't really think so.
Yeah, that's definitely true. This is one event. Maybe it's the first, but it's one. But there are some broader questions about, is this part of a pattern? I mean, even in the campaign, she struggled with press interviews, had some major flip-flops on the campaign trail. I mean, is this part of a pattern for her? And should it be troubling to her advisors and allies and people who want her to succeed that it's still happening even as vice president?
Oh, this is a problem for Kamala Harris. She has defenders in the Democratic Party. In fact, I saw, who is it? What's his name at the Washington Post, who used to be the reporter and turns out he's a partisan hack and always has been. Perry, whatever, Perry Bacon. Yes, it's the, Harris, she's actually a good politician. She's a run-of-the-mill politician. No, she's actually pretty terrible. She's actually pretty terrible at dealing with the press. She's actually pretty terrible with dealing with people around her who disagree. It's problematic for Kamala Harris. It is not good that Harris constantly gets into fighting, not just with the press, but with other people. And more importantly, that her staff is obsessed with social media. I'm stunned at how boneheaded her attempts have been to deal with this. Listen, this is not hard. This is not hard. You know that you've given the press a soundbite thanks to the Lester Holt interview. It is worth it going back to the Lester Holt interview, because this is what started the media frenzy.
Just quickly put a button.
Okay.
Do you have any plans to visit the border?
At some point, we are going to the border. We've been to the border. So this whole thing about the border, we've been to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. And I don't understand the point that you're making. I'm not discounting the importance of the border.
Well, I mentioned it because I know Republicans have certainly come at you on this, but Democratic Congressman Cuellar, as a border district, has said to you and the president, come. You need to see this.
Listen, I care about what's happening at the border.
That's such a bad way to handle it. That is almost like Veep, the HBO series Veep. How badly to handle it. I care. Oh my God. I mean, you can just see the wheels are, I've screwed this up. Let me say, I care. Lester, I care. And that started the frenzy. It started the frenzy. And that question has now hounded her. When are you going to the border? All she's got to do is schedule a trip to the border. Until she schedules a trip to the border, they're going to keep asking her the question. Until she schedules the trip to the border, nothing's going to change. It's just, it's remarkable to me that she and her team can't figure this out. And let me tell you what's going to happen. I have a prediction. In fact, my prediction has been picked up by, I've seen it cited now at CNN, Fox News, and NBC's Meet the Press. And I'm convinced I'm right. This trip for Kamala Harris south of the border to go to the Northern Triangle region of Guatemala, El Salvador, and the like, she has botched it. She, not her staff, she. It wasn't her staff who gave the Lester Holt interview. It was Kamala Harris. Now, the staff may not have prepared her for it. She very clearly did not think that she was going to be asked tough questions. And it is striking to me that Kamala Harris couldn't recover from the Lester Holt question. Other people started asking her the question, and she never got a good answer. So here's what's going to happen. She is going to stop taking interviews. She's going to disappear. Kamala, gone. Kamala Harris is going to start saying, why aren't you taking any more interviews? Because I'm busy. Because I'm preparing to go to the border. Because I'm focused on the job at hand. I don't have time for you people. That's what's going to happen here. She's going to go down that rabbit hole. She's going to be forced to sideline herself. She's going to be forced to make the media press attention go away by showing she's doing the job. And what she's probably going to wind up doing is going to the border for a feel-good show that really amounts to nothing. And the Republicans are going to be able to get in. Listen, here's the bottom line here. Kamala Harris has got to stand aside now. She can't do any more press interviews. The only way to do that is to say she's focused on the job and she's very busy, so she can't do them. but she's got to go to the border because the question's going to hound her. So she's going to go. The problem is this. The Harris team has been screwing up since before she dropped out before Iowa. It's not like Kamala Harris is surrounded with all new people. And so she's going to screw stuff up even further. She's going to screw stuff up even further. The Harris operation cannot recognize, does not recognize, will not recognize that she and her team aren't very good at what they're doing because they have enough fluffers in the press to defend her and tell her, like this Bacon dude at the Washington Post, oh, she's actually a very conventional politician. No, she's actually bad. She's actually not good at this. She dropped out before Iowa. But when she's surrounded with a bunch of people telling her she's actually good at it when she's not, she's got no incentive to improve. And that's going to be the problem because the Republicans will be able to go after this again. And members of the media who realize this is their ticket. See, this is part of the problem. The media knows that it humps Joe Biden's leg every day. The media knows they're Joe Biden's little horny chihuahua on his leg. They know it. ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, MSNBC, they know it. Every day they're looking to get on Joe Biden's leg like a little chihuahua. And they've got to find a way to show that they're not as biased as they are. So they can target Kamala Harris. And they can make Harris look bad. And they can ridicule Harris's performance on the campaign trail. So they can say, we're not biased for the Biden administration. Have you seen our coverage of Kamala Harris? Meanwhile, they're doing everything they can to avoid any sort of damage to Joe Biden, and they make it about Kamala Harris. And that's how the media tries to tell everyone they're not biased on Joe Biden's behalf. Look at their treatment of Kamala Harris, and they will think that it works. The only way Harris can avoid this is to actually stop doing interviews and go do photo ops where there aren't reporters interviewing her, and maybe she can turn it around. Until she does that, it continues to go badly for her. She's not very good on the trail. And you don't have to believe me to appreciate that that's true. Just look at what she did on the campaign trail. Again, she was done before Iowa. That suggests Hi there. It is Erick Erickson here. The phone number is 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. The Democrats, Nancy Pelosi, to be precise, I shouldn't say the Democrats, although she speaks for the House Democrats. They've got a problem. I got to play you 2 clips of audio from Nancy Pelosi. Here's the first one.
I'm wearing orange because this is the color of gun violence prevention. Last night, while we were having a moment of silence for those who had 49 people who were victims of the Pulse assault, other mass shootings were happening across the country. So as we talk about all of these issues, about infrastructure and about commission and about data mining and the rest, every day, every morning, every night, we are not forgetting these victims. When I visited Pulse at the time of the shooting, the families came together and said, stop this from happening. When they visited Washington following that horrible thing, they said, stop this from happening for other people's families to go through what we're going. That was from the families and then some of the victims who survived that. So again, for us, we are not going away until we can get legislation passed. We have in the House, hopefully in the Senate, it's bipartisan in the nation, that we would have background checks to prevent guns from getting in the hands of those who should not have them. Now, will that cover everything? No, but it goes a very long way, and it prevented millions of gun purchases not to happen up until now. Now we have to expand it to include internet sales and gun shows and the rest.
Okay, you got that. We got to expand. We got to do gun control. Never mind, they can't get anything through. But wait, there's more. She also said this.
Okay, so what we want to do is to have this drumbeat across America, because what we're doing is crossing a threshold. We are saying home care workers, child care, family and medical leave, raising the minimum wage, equal pay for equal work. All of these things are essential for us to treat people with the respect that they're worth. And as the SIU and others, and I worked the SIU in the Fight for 15, of course, we've been fighting so long for Fight for 15, and we want it to be higher now. But all of this is about respecting the dignity of work. So I want people to be unabashedly out there saying, this is what we need to do. Something different. Something different. And that's why Joe Biden, President Biden's statement to build back better, doesn't just mean, and it's a big important thing for many of us, is to build back greener. That's better, to build back greener, but also to build back with many more people participating in that building back and the economic success and prosperity of our country, not only for jobs, that's really important, but for ownership, for businesses. Small businesses, women-owned business, minority-owned business, veterans-owned businesses, all those kinds of things, to have some of the contracts that go into that, because you know what? It will make it better. It will make it better. So thank you for being part of the Care Economy Week of Action. Thank you all very much.
Okay, 2 separate statements from Nancy Pelosi. One is we need expanded gun background checks and the like. And 2, that we got to have a higher minimum wage than they already want. You know, the Democrats are pushing this idea that if American restaurants want to get people back to work, they need to pay more than what the government is paying them to stay home, and that's the free market. But that's not the free market. Forcing businesses to compete with the government is not the free market. That's what they don't understand. But there's something else going on as well. The pandemic economics are throwing things out. This is from the Wall Street Journal. Forget going back to the office. People are just quitting instead. As the pandemic cloud lifts, the percentage of Americans leaving employers for new opportunities is at its highest level in more than 2 decades. People don't want to go back to the office, so they're quitting, or they're going to find new work. You know, in a lot of businesses right now, employers have got to be careful laying people off. You lay people off in your business right now, those people can, one, go find jobs easily, but then others, if you deteriorate the morale of your business, you're going to see other people leave and say, well, screw this. I'm going to go find a new job somewhere else. And even the hint of a layoff coming, you're going to find people. This is an employee job market. This is not an employer job market right now. It is very easy for people to go find a new job right now. And employers have got to be mindful of this. They really have to be mindful of it. It doesn't help, though, when Nancy Pelosi's out there saying businesses have got to pay more than $15 an hour because a lot of businesses can't. The Democrats don't have an understanding of it. And fundamentally, what the Democrats are doing, what Nancy Pelosi is doing, is she's dividing Democrats from the middle class. The middle class is pro-gun, and the middle class is pro-job. And while a minimum wage above $15 an hour sounds good, it also will devastate the economy. It will force businesses to close. They can't do it. It's good for her to say these things to rally the Democratic base, but she can't get it through the Senate right now anyway. And at some point, it's going to whip the progressive base into a frenzy. And when they can't get the stuff done, they're going to